Hey y'all, it is Dr. MC, and we're back with Spaces from Above. So, this is the final pairing of episodes for season 2. For those of you who have been following along, you are aware that season 2 has been a long and personal and emotional journey. So, one, I appreciate you all for taking the journey with me. Two, I pray that the journey has been a blessing. And three, I solicit you all's prayers because this has been heavy. It's been heavy for me to talk about these things and to be transparent about some of the most painful parts of my life. And so I do realize that there is great blessing in being obedient, but I also realize that there's a necessity to be surrounded by prayer. So, yeah, like I said, the last pair of episodes for this season about all things womb trauma and womb healing. And this particular episode, I am going to share my journey with dealing and navigating and working through painful periods, a fibroid and a cyst, and pelvic floor dysfunction that I recently learned about. And all of those things are related to the previous episodes. So I will link as much together as I can think of. And my prayer for this episode in particular, or this pair of episodes in particular, is that it will shed some light on the silent suffering that a lot of us experience, particularly those of us who don't fit into the stereotype or the mold of cases that warrant attention from medical providers and other people who can support healing for these kinds of challenges. Because I know my experience definitely put me in a situation where I was outside of that prototype, so to speak. So with my journey through painful periods and navigating, all of the things that came up over the years and throughout the years of me having a menstrual cycle. I started my cycle when I was 11. And I recall I had a diary at that time, so I wrote it in my diary. And I remember it was ironic because we were learning about periods and puberty and all of that stuff in school. And so to be in the midst of starting a journey with, in the area of what we were learning in class was interesting. I think I was one of 3 girls in my school who had their cycle, so that was also interesting, but nonetheless, I remember starting kind of early, and being completely grossed out and feeling very strange and weird about the whole thing. And there were several times throughout those early, when I say early, I will pinpoint like the first I guess, 5 years in particular, of my cycle, I had really heavy and painful periods. And fortunately, my mother helped me navigate, through the process. And from her perspective, it was normal. Um, Typically, women don't experience their first pap smear until they become an adult, excuse me, or I think some women go if they are sexually active or if there's evidence to lead medical professionals to believe that there are tumors or things that are causing a lot of problems. And so, I didn't have any of those things going on, and there was no need for me to go to a gynecologist. But I remember having conversations with my mom, and like I said, her navigating me through like what to expect and letting me know that, oh, this was what my cycle was like when I was your age. It was, heavy and painful, and this is just kind of welcome to womanhood. And I have a couple of vivid memories that are rather embarrassing of me leaking through like super overnight pads. And I don't remember when I started wearing tampons. But I was one of the people who was like, yeah, I got to do this. And I think my motivation was I play sports, and just having that clunky pad on was uncomfortable. But nonetheless, I remember before I got into, using tampons and all that, I would bleed through an overnight pad in like 2 hours or less, and would bleed on my chair. This is so embarrassing to recall, but I remember like trying to um, wipe up the blood stains on my seat, which fortunately most of my seats were plastic. And so I would like move my butt around to wipe it up with my pants. And I don't remember if I started just wearing jackets or bringing them to cover myself up, but I always happened to have a jacket so that I could wrap it and tie it around my waist to cover up the blood. And I remember, if I had an accident, or not an accident, but if my cycle just popped up, wrapping toilet paper around my underwear, and the toilet paper would like roll up and flake. So I remember one time I was sitting in my chair and I'm looking at these little blood-stained bits of toilet paper on the floor, and I'm mortified because I realized, oh my gosh, it's like rolling up and falling through my pants. So like I have a bunch of stories like that, and it's only the grace of God that nobody was like, girl, like what is that stain on your pants, or what is that stain on the chair? Like purely the grace of God. But I also remember being like doubled over in pain, particularly that first and second day of my cycle. I would be in so much pain. It would feel like my pelvic bones were in a vice grip, and like it was just crushing it together and then releasing, and then crushing it together and releasing. And so I would just like get on all fours by the bed and just like cry and grit, and like hold on tight to my hands to try to redistribute the pain, because I didn't like taking over-the-counter medication. I had a situation when I was younger where I took Sudafed to the T based on the dosage, and I got sick to my stomach, and I hate being sick to my stomach. So I just hated taking, like I said, I hated taking pills, but I also hated taking any kind of over-the-counter medication. So I would just suffer through the pain. And again, it was like, oh, this is normal. And I think I remember my mom giving me the suggestion of getting on all fours or just like rocking back and forth on my knees to help alleviate some of that pressure and pain. And I just kind of coasted through like I said, especially those first 5 years or so. I kind of just coasted through it like that. And then I might have started wearing tampons because it was getting so bad and so embarrassing to have all of these leaks in school. I probably went ahead and just said, you know what, I'm gonna just take the risk and start using tampons. But I would wear heavy tampons, and I was terrified of TSS because everybody, scares you in those early years of you're gonna get toxic shock syndrome if you don't change your, tampon. And so I was really careful about tracking the hours, but I was never able to last a whole lot of hours anyways, even in like super tampons, because I would have to have a full pad as a backup and I would leak right through that bad boy. So fast forward to young adulthood, I got on the pill, and I remember being like pleasantly surprised at how how light my cycle was, and how I don't remember when the pain started going away, but I also remember thinking, oh, I don't have to guess when my period is going to show up. I remember when I was telling my doctor why I wanted to get on the pill and explaining my period. Oh, this is an important thing to note. My cycles were so heavy that I was borderline anemic. And so I had a permission slip from my doctor by the time I got to college to have a refrigerator, a mini fridge in my room so that I could eat and take my iron supplements, because you need to have food with the ones that I was taking early on. And so I would miss class sometimes because I would be so wiped out by fatigue. I would just want to sleep all day. And then I would just be groggy. I don't even know how many hours of sleep that I needed or would get, but I just remember I was always tired. I was always groggy, and it was embarrassing. And so, I got on birth control, and, eventually my cycles were very manageable. I could predict when they were coming, which was nice. And I could even skip them. And so I would use them to skip cycles and all that jazz. So I stayed on the pill for, I can't remember the years right now, but a long time. And it was about a year or so before I got married. I remember God saying to me, I want you to get off your birth control pills. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I looked up all these things on Pinterest on how to like detox yourself from the pill, because I had been reading and hearing things about the side effects of getting off the pill. And I remember, I think I got some things, when I went grocery shopping to help with it, but it was maybe a month after I stopped taking the pill, maybe 2, I started feeling numbness and excruciating pain again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I got on the pill to keep this stuff at bay, to like not have to deal with it. And I remember, hearing, and again, I believe I talked to my mom, and she was like, well, you're older now, so your cycle should have leveled out. They shouldn't be as difficult. And I remember thinking, like, this is like the worst thing ever that could happen. Stopping these pills and feeling, again, numbness and just ache. I can feel it now just talking about it. It was an aching, dull, numb pain that I would feel literally all day. And then it would feel like hot. And so I was completely confused about what was going on. I remember I scheduled, I had to call off, I had to cancel, sessions, because I was licensed at that point. So I was canceling sessions. I was having my friends lay hands on me and pray with anointing oil. And doing castor oil packs and like everything that I could find that was a natural remedy to alleviate, and like nothing was really giving me much relief. And so, and oh my gosh, I forgot about this. I was even drinking this concoction of, I think it was lemon, garlic, and honey, like in a tea. Like I would just bring it around with me when I was experiencing a lot of pain, and I would just sip it. And I made sure I had mints and gum around to disguise the garlic. But because I had read that that would help to alleviate the pain and heal whatever, help me detox and all that, right? And so eventually I scheduled an appointment with an OB/GYN. And I think I was in between insurance. So I was, I needed a new one. And I had my, at the time, boyfriend, who's now my husband, go to the appointment with me because I was scared, I was in pain, like it was all these things, right? And so I go in and I ask her, I get my checkup and it's very painful. I'm crying in the exam room when she's doing the pap smear. And I let her know that I would like what I'm experiencing. And I had an ultrasound scheduled so that they could figure out what's going on. She gets the results back, and I think I had to call her because it was just very nonchalant, the whole experience. And she has me come in and she's like, yeah, well, it looks like you have a small fibroid and a small cyst, but it was probably just because you had in your initial cycle had just ended. And so it was probably just your ovulation period starting, and the sac sometimes lingers. And I was like, okay. And she said, um, the pain that you're experiencing, like what I saw in the ultrasound, it wasn't anything that could be causing that kind of pain. So I don't know what's going on with you. And I'm like confused because I'm sitting across from a Black doctor that I sought out because I wanted somebody who looked like me, because I felt like they would see me, understand, and hear, and empathize and advocate for me. And so I'm disappointed that I'm not getting that. I'm also so confused as to why I can't, I'm not being believed. Like she spoke to me as if I was making it up. And so I said, well, can I get my hormone levels checked? And she said, well, why do you need that? Are you trying to get pregnant? That's the question you ask, ma'am. I was not trying to get pregnant. I was not married. And that had always been my plan in life, to not get pregnant until I got married. And that's what God allowed. So, I was like, no, I just want my hormone levels checked. And she said, well, you don't need that unless you're trying to, start a family. And so because I'm distraught, I was just like, okay, thank you. And I ended up leaving the appointment. And I don't remember if it was on the way to the appointment or if it was leaving that appointment. But my boyfriend and I, like I said, my now husband, went to get lunch. And I sobbed in the car. And I explained to him that, it was so triggering to go to that appointment with a history of sexual assault. Going to the gynecologist and getting a pap smear can be an extraordinarily, extremely triggering event. I've never liked it. I'm always in pain, and I always, tighten up, and it's just a very uncomfortable experience. And so I'm sobbing because I was triggered. I'm sobbing because I wasn't heard. And I'm just like overall distraught that I can't figure out what's wrong with me. And I'm so tired of carrying pain in my womb that I feel hopeless at this point. And I didn't learn until, maybe a year after I had my son, that more likely than not, what I was experiencing was pelvic floor dysfunction. And I was so disappointed to know that my gynecologist didn't even care to give me a referral to mention that. It was just, oh, well, you don't have, and one of the things she mentioned is, I work with people who have, women who have, fibroids the size of grapefruits and softballs. And so like this kind of thing that you have, it's so small, it can't be causing this kind of pain. And it like the complete dismissal of my experience, the complete denial of my reality was another trauma added on to the plethora at that point of trauma that I had experienced in my womb. And so, I'm sharing this to, again, encourage women who have had similar experiences, not to give up. I eventually found a new OB-GYN. It took a while, but because I was traumatized. But advocate for yourself, and listen to your body. Your body speaks to you. God has made us perfectly, and He's designed us with lots of detail. And so there are literally things built into our body to tell us, to warn us that there's something going on. And that's what my body was doing. It was saying, hey, something's off. Something's off. Go get help. And, like I said, I tried so many different things and none of them relieved the pain. And then finally, I started to get relief after a lot of prayer. I probably did some fasting as well. And God revealed to me, a diet plan that He wanted me to go on. And the adjustments that I made a huge difference in my experience. But this is now several months after. Like I didn't find relief really until I think it was right after I got married. So there was a long period of time where I suffered and didn't really have much of an explanation. And I'm a researcher by nature, so I, of course, researched a bunch of different things, and I didn't come across pelvic floor dysfunction. So, and my friends have experiences with different womb issues related to cysts and fibroids, and so they were like, well, maybe it's endo, maybe it's PCOS, maybe it's this, just trying to rule out things. Just to help me get some answers. And again, I just remember how frustrating it was. I remember having conversations with people that I trusted about how I was experiencing abdominal pain that made it hard to sing. And I remember the strange looks that I got, like, what are you talking about? I remember feeling like people thought that I had secretly gone and had an abortion or something because I was in a relationship. And we're transparent here on Spaces and Above Land. And some people knew that again, at the time, my fiance and I were sharing a house. And it's not for this episode, but people have a lot of beliefs and a lot of judgment in particular that they can give folks. And none of it was made public to me, but I know I carried a lot of shame about it. And even though we were in literally separate floors of, my house at the time. And so, but I remember carrying that shame, and then it all just links to after, I was assaulted in college, feeling the shame and feeling like I needed to hide and like I had done something wrong. It was all linked to this discovery of, oh, have these tumors or whatever is going on, have they been hidden in my body all this time and just covered up by this pill that I was taking? And that reminds me of learning that I had been molested as a child, my memory letting me know that I was safe enough to start recalling some of those things. And and then when you throw on top of that pregnancy and having a cesarean and all of the changes that your body goes through during that period, it all links together to make a big sandwich of pelvic floor dysfunction, pain, shame, and difficulty. And so again, I wanted to share this for the women who have a little fibroid here or a little cyst there, and or have heavy cycles and are embarrassed and I can't find solutions. In part 2 of this, I am going to share some of the solutions that God shared with me and some of the things that resources He gave me to heal, and also the encouragement that I got from His Word and just my relationship with Him, so that I wouldn't have to continue suffering. So, as always, share this with somebody who needs to hear this story. If you are someone who has experienced this and you have questions, or just want to share some feedback, send me an email. And yeah, I will catch you all in the next episode.